Ilara had learned long ago that the safest thing to do was leave before anyone could make her. She'd been running for 3 years, ever since her father died and left her with nothing but his debts and enemies. A healer's daughter with no home, no protection, no pack. Just a worn satchel of medicines and the hard-won knowledge that staying anywhere too long meant trouble would find her. She hadn't meant to collapse at the border of the Blackwood territory. She certainly hadn't meant to wake up in the Lycan king's castle. "Easy." The voice was deep, steady. "You've been unconscious for 2 days." Ilara's eyes flew open. She was lying in a bed softer than anything she'd ever touched, in a room larger than any home she'd known. Firelight flickered against stone walls, and standing beside the bed was a man who could only be the Lycan king himself. Cale Blackwood. She'd heard stories. Everyone had. The ancient king who ruled the largest territory in the realm. The wolf who had conquered armies. The monster, some called him, whose enemies didn't live long enough to regret crossing him. He didn't look like a monster. He looked concerned. "Where?" Her voice cracked. She tried to sit up and gasped as pain lanced through her side. "Don't." He moved closer, and she flinched before she could stop herself. He paused, his expression flickering with something she couldn't read. "You have 3 broken ribs and a fever that nearly killed you. My healers have done what they can, but you need rest." Ilara's mind raced. The border. She'd been trying to cross into unclaimed territory when the fever had taken her. She remembered falling. She remembered cold earth and the certainty that this was where she would finally stop running, not by choice, but because her body had simply given out. "Why?" she whispered. "Why what?" "Why help me?" She forced herself to meet his eyes. They were dark grey, like storm clouds. "I'm no one. I have nothing. I can't pay you." Something shifted in his expression. "I didn't ask for payment." "Everyone asks for payment." The words came out bitter, tired. 3 years of learning that kindness always came with a price. 3 years of men who helped her and then expected her gratitude in forms she refused to give. 3 years of running from the debt collectors who wanted to claim her as property to settle her father's accounts. The Lycan king studied her for a long moment. Then he pulled a chair to her bedside and sat down, which struck her as absurd. A king sitting at the bedside of a nameless wanderer. "What's your name?" he asked. "Ilara." "Ilara." He said it slowly, like he was tasting the word. "I'm Kyle, and I helped you because my patrol found you dying at my border. Was I supposed to leave you there?" "Most would have." "I'm not most." She didn't know what to say to that. She was too weak to run, too confused to argue, too exhausted to do anything but lie there and wait for the other shoe to drop. It always dropped. "Rest," Kyle said, rising from the chair. "When you're stronger, we'll talk about what happens next." "What happens next is I leave," she said. "As soon as I can walk, I'll be gone. I won't be a burden." He paused at the door, looking back at her with an expression she couldn't decipher. "You're not a burden, Ilara, and you're welcome to leave whenever you choose. But you might find that you don't want to." Then he was gone, and she was alone with the fire's warmth and a bone-deep confusion that wouldn't let her sleep. She didn't leave. Not because she didn't want to, she did, desperately, but because her body refused to cooperate. The fever lingered for another week. The ribs took longer. And through it all, the Lycan king visited her every single day. It made no sense. He was a king. He had a territory to rule, a court to manage, threats to handle. Yet every evening, without fail, he appeared at her door. Sometimes he brought books. Sometimes he brought food. Good food, the kind she'd forgotten existed. Sometimes he just sat with her in comfortable silence, reading by firelight while she pretended to sleep. "You don't have to do this," she told him one night, 3 weeks into her recovery. She was sitting up now, strong enough to feed herself, though walking still made her dizzy. "Whatever debt you think I owe you—" "There's no debt." "Then why?" She heard the frustration in her own voice. "Why keep coming here? Why bring me things? I don't understand what you want from me." Cale set down his book and looked at her directly. His gaze was steady, unflinching, and far too perceptive. "When my patrol brought you in," he said slowly, "you were half dead, starving, injured, running from something that had clearly been chasing you for a long time." He leaned forward slightly. "I've lived for 300 years, Ilara. I've seen countless people come through my territory, refugees, wanderers, those who've lost everything. Most of them have the same look in their eyes: fear, wariness, the expectation of cruelty." She said nothing. He was describing her exactly. "But underneath your fear," he continued, "I saw something else: strength, determination. Someone who had survived things that would have broken others." His voice softened. "I visit because I want to know the woman who survived all that, not because I want something from you. Because I find myself curious." Ilara stared at him. In 3 years of running, no one had ever been curious about her. She'd been a means to an end, a body to use, a debt to collect, never a person worth knowing. "You'll be disappointed," she said quietly. "There's nothing worth knowing." Kyle smiled, just slightly, just enough to transform his stern features into something almost gentle. "I doubt that very much." He left her with that smile lingering in her mind, and Ilara lay awake for hours, trying to understand why her chest felt so tight. She was a runner. She always ran. So why did some small, treacherous part of her want to stay? By the 5th week, Ilara could walk without dizziness. By the 6th, she could make it down the corridor and back without needing to rest. By the 7th, she had no excuse left to stay. She told herself she was preparing, gathering her strength, waiting for the right moment. But every morning she woke in that impossibly soft bed, and every evening Kale appeared at her door, and somehow another day would pass without her leaving. It was the conversations. That was the problem. He asked her things no one had ever asked. Not just surface questions, her favorite color, her preferred foods, but real questions. What had she dreamed of becoming before her father died? What did she miss most about having a home? What made her laugh? She couldn't remember the last time someone had cared whether she laughed. "You're avoiding my question," Cale said one evening. They were in the castle library. He'd started bringing her here once she could walk, claiming she needed stimulation beyond her bedroom walls. She suspected he just wanted to share his books with someone. "I'm not avoiding it. I'm deciding whether to answer." "That's the same thing." "It's really not." He was sitting across from her in a leather armchair, firelight catching the silver at his temples. 300 years old, and he looked perhaps 40. It should have unsettled her. Instead, she found herself wondering what he'd seen in all those centuries. What had shaped him into this patient, steady presence that kept appearing in her life whether she wanted him to or not? "The question was simple," he pressed. "What do you want to do now that you're healed?" "Leave." The word came automatically. "Find somewhere safe. Start over." "Is that what you want?" Or what you think you're supposed to say? She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. He had an infuriating habit of seeing through her. It's what I've always done, she finally admitted. Stay too long and people start asking questions, start expecting things, start wanting. She stopped herself. Wanting what? It doesn't matter. Kyle leaned forward, his grey eyes intent. It matters to me. The words hung in the air between them. Ilara felt her chest tighten the way it always did when he said things like that, things that sounded almost like he cared. Why? She asked. Why does anything about me matter to you? I'm a stranger, a vagrant who collapsed at your border. You don't owe me anything, and I certainly can't offer you anything. So why do you keep… She gestured vaguely. This, all of this. For a long moment, Kyle said nothing. Then he rose from his chair, crossed to where she sat, and knelt before her so they were eye to eye. Ilara's breath caught. I'm going to tell you something, he said quietly, and I need you to hear it without running. Can you do that? Her heart was pounding. I don't know. Honest? A ghost of a smile crossed his face. That's what I like about you, Ilara. You don't pretend. He took a breath. When my patrol brought you to me, I knew. The moment I caught your scent, I knew what you were. She went very still. What I was? My mate. The word dropped between them like a stone into still water. No. She was shaking her head before she'd consciously decided to. No, I'm not… You can't… I can. I did. You are. His voice remained steady, calm, as if he'd had weeks to come to terms with this, which, she realized, he had. The bond recognized you the instant you entered my territory. I've been waiting 300 years for you, Ilara. She shot to her feet, nearly tripping over him in her haste to put distance between them. Her back hit the bookshelf. Then you must be disappointed. Because I'm no one's mate. I'm not… I don't… Breathe. I can't do this. Her voice was rising, panic clawing at her throat. I can't be what you need. I don't know how to stay. I don't know how to be anyone's anything. I'll only disappoint you, and then you'll hate me, and… Ilara. He hadn't moved from where he knelt, hadn't tried to grab her or stop her, just said her name, low and steady, like an anchor in a storm. I'm not asking you for anything. She stared at him, trembling. What? I'm not asking you to be my mate. I'm not asking you to stay. I'm not asking you for a single thing. He rose slowly, keeping distance between them. I told you because you deserved to know, because you kept asking why I was kind to you, and you deserved the truth. The truth, she repeated hollowly. Yes, the truth is that my wolf recognized you as mine the moment you arrived. The truth is that every instinct I have is screaming at me to claim you, protect you, keep you. His jaw tightened. But I won't, because you've spent 3 years being chased by people who wanted to take things from you. I refuse to be another one. Ilara didn't know what to say, didn't know what to feel. Her whole body was shaking, but she couldn't tell if it was fear or something else entirely. So what happens now? She whispered. Whatever you want. He moved toward the door, giving her space. If you want to leave tomorrow, I'll give you supplies, gold, and safe passage to wherever you want to go. If you want to stay… He paused, his hand on the doorframe. If you stay, I'll court you properly. No expectations, no pressure. Just time. Time for you to decide if you could ever want me back. And if I can't? If I decide I don't want you? Something flickered in his eyes, pain, quickly suppressed. Then I'll let you go. It will hurt, but I'll survive. He left her standing in the library, surrounded by books and firelight, and the ruins of everything she thought she understood. She should leave. She knew she should leave. But when she returned to her room that night, she found a package waiting on her bed. Inside was a cloak, deep green velvet lined with fur, the finest thing she'd ever touched. A note was tucked into the folds. For cold nights. No strings attached. Kay Ilara held the cloak to her chest and did something she hadn't done in 3 years. She cried. She stayed. Not because she'd decided anything, she hadn't. But every morning she woke up and told herself she'd leave tomorrow. And every night she went to sleep still there. Days turned into weeks. The green cloak hung in her wardrobe, and she pretended she didn't reach out to touch it every time she passed. True to his word, Kale courted her. It wasn't like anything she'd imagined. There were no grand gestures, no overwhelming declarations. Instead, there were small things, thoughtful things. A book left outside her door because he'd mentioned an author she might like. Fresh flowers on her breakfast tray. Wildflowers, not hothouse blooms, because she'd once said she preferred things that grew free. An invitation to walk the castle grounds, always phrased as a question, never an expectation. He gave her space. He gave her choices. He gave her time. It was driving her quietly insane. "You're staring again," she said one afternoon. They were in the garden, sitting on a stone bench beneath an ancient oak. She'd been reading, or trying to. Hard to focus with his eyes on her. "I am," he agreed, not remotely apologetic. "It's unnerving." "Would you like me to stop?" She should have said yes. Instead, she found herself asking, "Why do you do it?" "Because you're beautiful." He said it simply, like stating the weather. "And because every time I look at you, I notice something new. The way you tuck your hair behind your ear when you're concentrating. The way you bite your lip when you're trying not to smile. The way your shoulders slowly relax when you realize no one's going to hurt you." His voice softened. "I've been watching you learn to feel safe, Ilara. It's the most remarkable thing I've ever witnessed." She didn't know what to say. Her throat felt tight. "I'm not beautiful," she managed. If you say broken, I will argue with you." "I was going to say ordinary." Kale laughed. A real laugh, warm and startled. "You are many things. Ordinary is not among them." That night, the nightmare came. She hadn't had one since arriving at the castle. Some part of her had hoped they were gone for good. But they found her anyway. The debt collectors' faces, their hands grabbing at her, the cold certainty that she would be sold and used and discarded like garbage. She woke screaming. The door burst open before she'd even registered where she was. Kyle stood in the doorway, chest heaving, eyes wild, and then he saw her tangled in the sheets, tears streaming down her face, and something in him went very still. "Ilara." He crossed to her slowly, carefully, the way one might approach a wounded animal. "You're safe. You're in the castle. No one can hurt you here." They were... She couldn't get the words out. Her whole body was shaking. "They found me. They always find me. They said I was just a body to sell, just a debt to pay, just... Look at me." He sat on the edge of her bed, keeping distance between them. "Look at me, Ilara." She forced her eyes to his, grey, steady, anchoring. "You are not a debt," he said, each word precise and deliberate. "You are not a body to sell. You are not something to be used and discarded. You are a person, a brilliant, resilient, extraordinary person who survived things that would have destroyed anyone else. His hands clenched at his sides, like he was physically restraining himself from reaching for her. And if anyone ever tries to take you, they will have to go through me. Do you understand? You can't promise that. I can. I do. I am. She didn't know who moved first. One moment they were separate, and the next she was in his arms, her face pressed against his chest, his hand cradling the back of her head. He was warm, solid, real, and he held her like she was something precious instead of something broken. They almost got me once, she whispered into his shirt. 2 years ago. A merchant who said he'd give me work. He drugged my food. I woke up in chains. She felt Kyle go rigid beneath her, heard the low growl building in his chest. I got away. Barely. But sometimes I still feel the chains. Sometimes I still smell that room. I'm going to ask you a question, he said, his voice rough. And you don't have to answer. But I need to know. She nodded against his chest. Did he? No. She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. I got away before, but he made it clear what he intended, what I was worth to him. Her laugh was hollow. 50 gold pieces? That's what he said he'd get for me. A healer who could also warm beds. Very valuable. The sound Kale made was barely human. For a moment, his eyes flashed amber. His wolf, she realized. His wolf rising to the surface. Give me his name. Kale. Give me his name, and I will hunt him down and tear out his throat. His voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. I will make him beg for death before I grant it. I will ensure that the last thing he sees is the face of the wolf who destroyed him for daring to touch what's mine. She should have been frightened. This was the Lycan king the stories warned about, the monster, the conqueror, the wolf who showed no mercy. But all she felt was safe. I don't know his name, she said softly. I never learned it. And even if I did... She reached up, touching his face. His jaw was clenched tight beneath her palm. He already lost, because I'm here. I'm alive. She stopped herself. But she'd already said too much. You're what? Kale's voice was barely a whisper. His hand came up to cover hers where it rested on his face. I'm starting to think I might be okay, she finished. It wasn't what she'd almost said. They both knew it. He turned his head, pressed his lips to her palm. Just that, just his mouth against her hand, and her entire body caught fire. Stay, he murmured against her skin. Not forever. Not as my mate. Just stay a little longer. Please. She should have said no. She should have protected herself, guarded her heart, remembered that everyone who'd ever made her feel safe had eventually hurt her. But she looked at this ancient, powerful king kneeling before her with her hand pressed to his lips, asking instead of taking, and she couldn't find the word. Okay, she whispered. A little longer. The smile he gave her was worth every nightmare she'd ever had. 3 months. That's how long she stayed. 3 months of quiet mornings and firelit evenings. 3 months of Kale's steady presence, his careful courtship, his patience that never wavered. 3 months of feeling something she'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. She should have known it couldn't last. The letter arrived on a grey Tuesday morning. A messenger from the Southern Territories, bearing a sealed envelope addressed not to the king, but to her. Ilara's hands trembled as she opened it. We know where you are. We know whose bed you've crawled into. Did you think spreading your legs for a king would erase your father's debts? It doesn't. You still owe us. And now that you've made yourself valuable, we'll be collecting double. You have 1 week. Come to us willingly, or we'll come to you. And we'll make sure your precious king knows exactly what kind of whore he's been harboring. The creditors. The paper slipped from her fingers. They'd found her. Of course they had. 3 years of running, and she'd let herself stop. Let herself believe she was safe. Let herself forget that people like her didn't get happy endings. She couldn't let them come here. Couldn't let them poison what Kyle thought of her. Couldn't let him fight her battles and risk his reputation, his kingdom, his life. For what? A debt-ridden healer's daughter who'd been stupid enough to think she could outrun her past. She had to leave. The decision was made before she'd fully processed it. She would go tonight, while the castle slept. She would disappear into the wilderness the way she always had. And Kyle would wake up tomorrow and find her gone, and eventually he would forget her. It was better this way. Cleaner, kinder. She didn't say goodbye. She couldn't. If she saw his face, if she heard his voice, she would break. And she couldn't afford to break. Not now. She waited until midnight, packed her worn satchel with only essentials, her medicines, a change of clothes, the green cloak she couldn't bear to leave behind. She didn't take the gold he'd offered, didn't take any of the beautiful things he'd given her. Those belonged to the woman she'd pretended to be, the woman who deserved them. The corridor was dark and silent as she crept toward the servants' exit. Her heart pounded so loudly she was certain someone would hear. Just a few more steps. Just a few more. Going somewhere? She froze. Kyle stood at the end of the corridor, arms crossed, still fully dressed, like he'd been waiting for her, like he'd known. Her voice cracked. I have to go. Do you? He didn't move toward her, didn't try to block her path, just stood there, watching her with those grey eyes that saw everything. Or do you think you have to go? It's not the same thing. Isn't it? She couldn't do this, couldn't stand here and explain while her heart shattered into pieces. Please, just let me leave. It's better for everyone. Better for whom? Now he moved, slow, deliberate steps that closed the distance between them. Because it's certainly not better for me, and I don't believe it's better for you either. You don't understand? Then help me understand. He stopped an arm's length away, close enough to touch, close enough that she could smell him, pine and wood smoke and something wild underneath. Tell me why you're running. Tell me what's frightened you so badly that you'd leave without even saying goodbye. The tears came before she could stop them. They found me. The debt collectors. They sent a letter. They're coming. And they'll tell everyone what I am, what I owe. And I'll what? You'll realize I'm not worth it. The words tore out of her like broken glass. You'll see that I'm exactly what they say I am. A debtor's daughter. A burden. A worthless. Stop! His voice was sharp enough to cut. Stop right there! She flinched, and something in his expression crumbled. Ilara. He reached for her then, slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his hands cupped her face, thumbs brushing away her tears. I have known about your father's debts since the 2nd week you were here. The world tilted. What? Did you think I wouldn't investigate? A mysterious woman collapses at my border, clearly running from something, and I'm supposed to just not ask questions? His laugh was soft, sad. I know everything. The debts, The collectors. The merchant who tried to sell you. I've known for months. Then why? Why didn't I cast you out? Why didn't I decide you were worthless? His grip on her face tightened, not painfully but firmly, grounding her. Because none of it matters. Your father's mistakes are not your sins. The crimes committed against you do not diminish your worth, and the opinion of some pathetic debt collectors means less than nothing to me. They'll come here. They'll cause trouble for you. Let them come. His eyes flashed amber. Let them set one foot in my territory, and I will show them exactly what happens to people who threaten what's mine. I'm not. You are. He cut her off, his voice rough with emotion. You have been mine since the moment I caught your scent. You will be mine until I draw my last breath. And if you want to leave, if you truly want to go, I will not stop you. He leaned closer, his forehead nearly touching hers. But you will not leave alone. You will not disappear into the night like you're something shameful. If you run, I run with you. If you hide, I hide with you. Wherever you go, Ilara, I go. That is not negotiable. She stared at him, barely breathing. You would leave your kingdom. For me. I would burn my kingdom to the ground for you. He said it like a simple fact. But I don't think I'll have to, because I don't think you actually want to leave. I don't know what I want. Yes, you do. His thumb traced her cheekbone. You're just afraid to admit it. So let me make it easier for you. He took a breath. I love you, Ilara. Not because of the mate bond. Not because my wolf chose you. I love you because you are brave and kind and resilient. Because you make me laugh. Because you challenge me. Because every moment I spend with you makes me want 1,000 more. Kale. I love you, he repeated. And I am asking you, not commanding, not demanding, asking, to stay. To let me handle the collectors. To let me protect you, not because you're weak, but because you deserve someone who fights for you. His voice dropped to a whisper. Please, stay. She should have argued, should have listed all the reasons it was a terrible idea, all the ways it would go wrong, all the pain that surely waited for her if she let herself want this. Instead, she kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't careful. It was 3 months of longing finally breaking free, her hands fisting in his shirt, his arms crushing her against him. The taste of tears and desperation, and something that felt terrifyingly like forever. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kale rested his forehead against hers. Is that a yes? Ilara laughed, a wet, broken, joyful sound. That's a yes. Thank the gods? He kissed her again, softer this time. Because I really didn't want to have to chase you through the wilderness. You would have, though. Without hesitation. He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. You're mine, Ilara, and I am yours. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Together. She'd never had that before. Never had someone who would stand beside her instead of behind her or in front of her. Together? She repeated. And for the first time in her life, she believed it. The debt collectors came 3 days later. There were 4 of them, hard-faced men with cruel eyes and the swagger of people who'd never been told no. They rode through the castle gates like they owned the place, demanding an audience with the king. They got one. Ilara stood at Kyle's side in the great hall, wearing a gown of deep green velvet that matched the cloak he'd given her. Her hand was clasped in his, their fingers intertwined. She'd wanted to hide. He'd refused to let her. You face them as my equal, he'd said that morning, not as someone with something to be ashamed of. So here she was, terrified, trembling, but standing. The leader of the collectors, a thick-necked man with a scar across his jaw, looked her up and down with undisguised contempt. So, the little debtor found herself a protector. How sweet. He turned to Kale, dismissing her entirely. Your Majesty, we've come to collect what's owed. The girl's father left significant debts, and she's the only remaining asset. Hand her over, and we'll be on our way. No. The word was quiet, final. It echoed through the silent hall. The collector's smile faltered. I don't think you understand. We have legal claim. You have nothing. Kale's voice didn't rise, but something in it made every person in the room go very still. You have forged documents and fabricated debts designed to enslave a woman who owed you nothing. Did you think I wouldn't investigate? Did you think I would simply hand over my mate because you waved some papers at me? The colour drained from the collector's face. Your mate? My mate. My future queen. The woman I will spend the rest of my very long life protecting, cherishing, and loving. Kale released Alara's hand and stepped forward. He didn't shift, didn't bare his teeth, didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The power radiating off him was enough. So, let me be perfectly clear about what happens now. You will leave my territory. You will never speak her name again. You will never send another letter, another threat, another whisper in her direction. And if I ever hear that you've so much as thought about her, I will hunt you down personally and make you beg for a death I will not grant. One of the collectors stumbled backward. Another made a sound like a whimper. The leader tried to salvage his dignity. You can't just... The law. I am the law in this territory. Kyle smiled, and it was the smile of a wolf who'd already won. You have until sunset to cross my border. After that, my patrols have orders to treat you as hostile invaders. He tilted his head. Do you know what we do with hostile invaders? They ran, not walked, ran, tripping over each other in their haste to reach the doors, their threats and swagger forgotten. The great hall erupted in murmurs as they fled, the assembled court watching their king defend his chosen mate against men who'd tried to claim her as property. Ilara stood frozen, barely breathing, as Kyle turned back to her. Are you all right? He asked softly. She burst out laughing. It wasn't dignified. It wasn't queenly. It was hysterical, joyful, relieved laughter that she couldn't have stopped if she'd tried. 3 years of running, 3 years of fear. And it had ended with 4 men fleeing a great hall like children caught stealing sweets. Kale's lips twitched. I'll take that as a yes. She threw her arms around him right there, in front of everyone, and kissed him until the court broke into applause. They were married a month later. It was a small ceremony, just the inner court, a few trusted advisors, and the spring sun streaming through the chapel windows. Ilara wore white silk and wildflowers in her hair. Kyle wore black and a smile he couldn't seem to stop. When he slid the ring onto her finger, his hands were shaking. I never thought I'd have this, he murmured, quiet enough that only she could hear. 300 years, and I'd given up hoping. I never thought I'd deserve this, she whispered back. 23 years, and I'd stopped believing. Then we'll believe for each other. He kissed her, and she tasted forever on his lips. That night, in the king's chambers that were now hers too, he loved her like she was precious, like she was wanted, like she was worth waiting 3 centuries for. And when she woke the next morning, wrapped in his arms, she didn't think about running. Not even for a moment. 1 year later, Ilara stood on the balcony of their chambers, watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold. A hand settled on her waist, and she leaned back into Kyle's warmth. "You're thinking loudly," he said against her hair. "I'm thinking about the girl who collapsed at your border." She turned in his arms, looking up at him. She was so sure she was worthless, so certain that kindness always came with a price, so convinced that she didn't deserve to be loved. And now? Now. She smiled, and it was the smile of a woman who had learned her own worth. "Now I'm a queen. I'm building a healer's guild to help people who can't afford medicine. I'm loved by a man who would burn kingdoms for me. And I'm happier than I ever thought possible." Kale's arms tightened around her. "You were always worthy of this, Ilara. Always. You just needed someone to show you." "You did more than show me." She rose on her toes, pressing a kiss to his jaw. "You waited. You let me choose. You made me believe I was worth choosing." "You are." He captured her lips in a proper kiss. "You always were. You always will be." She'd spent so long running from debt collectors and cruel men and her own inadequacy, running from hope, from love, from the terrifying possibility that maybe, just maybe, she deserved good things. She wasn't running anymore. She was home. "I love you," she said, the words easy now in a way they'd never been before. "I love you, Cale Blackwood, my king, my mate, my home." His smile was brighter than the sunrise. "And I love you, Ilara Blackwood, my queen, my mate, my everything." Behind them, the castle was waking up. A kingdom waited for its rulers. 1,000 responsibilities called for their attention. But for now, in this moment, there was only the two of them. A woman who had finally stopped running, and the wolf who had promised to follow her anywhere. She'd tried to leave without saying goodbye. He'd said, "Not without me." And in the end, that had made all the difference. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new tale. Leave a comment telling me your favorite part, and I'll see you in the next one.